Hi guys, it's Kelly here, and I am back with a video for Honeybee Stamps. Today's video is a product spotlight, and we are going to be looking at the Lovely Layers Toolbox and the Toolbox add-on. So I'm also using the Nailed It sentiment set, the stamps and dies that is new in this Saddles and Sawdust release as well. But let's take a quick look at these first. So the one on the left, the smaller one, is the Lovely Layers Toolbox. You can see here it consists of, just a couple of pieces, and then down in the bottom, like you can see it all put together. This is the Lovely Layers Tool add-on, which includes some bottles, some tools, a hammer, adjustable wrench, screwdriver, and an open-ended wrench. So there's lots of fun stuff that you can kind of put in the toolbox. I also think that I am going to try, do you remember the garden add-on that we had that has like all the little garden tools? I think that would be really fun in here, maybe with some flowers, like maybe from the herb set, the Lovely Layers herbs. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and cut out, die cut the actual toolbox, and I'm doing that all out of this craft cardstock. And then for the bottles, originally, honestly, I cut everything out of white because I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, and I ended up messing around and doing a couple of different techniques. Most of those you will not see in this video though, because I really wanted to keep the concentration on putting the tools together and all of the pieces parts together, in case you are a person who's just like pit stopping in and is like, hey, I don't necessarily care how you colored those bottles. I just want to know how the bottles go together. So I will do another video with those techniques for the bottles and the labels. I will do another video later on showing that. But so here, I cut everything out of white. I am going to get my little die release tool to help me kind of pop them up. I do like to store my pieces in a little cup so I don't lose anything. So I told you I colored everything or cut out everything out of white. Then I was like, what would be fun? Like a metallic kind of shiny label. So I cut them out of gold. And to make sure that I got a really good, like, embossed impression of the words, I actually used a 2-layer thick cardstock shim when I ran it through, and that's just to make sure that I got the words pressed in really well, and that worked great. I didn't have any issues with that at all. And then what did I do? I did silver. I did the tools. I cut them out of silver. This is all just mirror cardstock, just to make it a little extra fancy. Like I said, you can see here, I've kind of done a little bit of a technique on the labels. I promise you, I will show that in another video. But then I decided that, so I have the gold labels, and now I'm going to do the tools. The tools, cutting them out of white, is still something that I needed to do for the hammer and the screwdriver, because there are additional layers for them. But the 2 wrenches, like the open-ended wrench is just one piece. There are no layers. And then the adjustable wrench has 3 layers, but all of them would be metal. So I did them all in that metallic. So you can see how like the screwdriver is kind of like hanging off the edge. And that's because that particular part, which is the handle, I don't need it to be metallic. And I'll show you a little trick that I did with so that way the layers didn't look too bulky when I was building them up. But like I said, the coloring, again, I will include in another video, I promise. I just wanted to show you how they come together. So here's the bottles that I've colored. And these are all just white cardstock. All of the dimension that you see there is just from the coloring. And I'm just going to lay these out here so that you can see which lids go with what, and also which labels go with what. That larger one, the Big Beer, does not have a lid. That's not the style of bottle that it is. So here I'm just going to put my little labels down, glued those right on top. You could also, do them as like an open bottle. So you could color them, like you could see how I added the dimension so it looks like the lip of the bottle. You could color them that way and then, leave like the bottle of it, on the counter or, whatever place that you were putting it so that it looked like it was open. That would be really fun too. For this one, this portion actually goes behind the beer glass. It's not a glass. It's not a mug. What is it? Bottle? The beer bottle. I don't drink beer. So that part that like you would kind of pop off the top goes behind it, and then the actual lid goes on in front, and then you can put the label. Now I will tell you, in another video, I used that label, that cold beer label, for the bottle for the root beer, and it worked fine. It's very close. You could trim it so that it fit perfectly, but it was close enough for me that I didn't have an issue with it. So, you can kind of mess around with different size bottles. But this is how all three of them come together from the add-on, and there you can see it has their little metallic tops and the labels. I think they're super cute. And just, you could even, that one, the root beer one, you could even turn that into like 2 liters of pop and like leave off that label, or, cut the label and then maybe do like a little circle or a heart or something over the top. There's ways you could work that so that you could turn it into other things, and that would be really fun. So here for the tools, I am, it's a claw hammer, so that's the layer so that it looks like there's 2 of them, and then the top portion of the hammer here, you can see the metallic part with the screwdriver. I only just used I left the lip of it on there, but I'm only going to put glue on the actual screwdriver portion. I'm not going to put it on the handle. And then I kind of like flipped it almost like a book, like just flipped it open so that I could get my scissors in there and just trim it off. And then that way I don't have my handle like partially up and, like partially on another level and partially not. And it's not too thick. So those are the only 2, like I said, that are layered with colors. This is the adjustable wrench, and this is all the metallics. So I'm just layering them up there. It's got this little side piece and then another little square, which would be, the portion that you were adjusting. And then the open-ended wrench is just the open-ended wrench. So those are the tools there. And then I will show you here, like they're all fun and metallic and they all look like metal tools, and I love that. If you don't have mirror cardstock or metallic cardstock, there's a brushed metallic is really popular right now too. You could absolutely color them gray with your markers and then add like a clear glitter over the top to help them look more metallic. So now here is the toolbox, and we are going to put this together. This piece goes along the top. It's like the dowel rod that forms the handle of it. And then you have this backer piece. Again, I didn't want to include all of the coloring because this video would be very, very long. So that goes on the back piece. And then I'm just, any areas that, maybe I need to add a little bit more shading, you will see me doing that. These 2 longer pieces go in the front to form kind of like that archway over, and this helps to give it that dimension. I really think this is great. I think we're going to be able to use this for lots of stuff. Like the mini, what do they have? They have the Lovely Layers mini florals, like they have them for the holidays, and there's another one too. Like you could put flowers in here, and that would be so cute. So there, I'm just adding a little bit of extra shading. And then these 2 go up front, but before you put them on, you're going to want to fill your toolbox with whatever it is you're putting in there. Now, I am going to put in all of the things that we just colored, but I will tell you that it is not for the card that you are going to see. And the reason it is not is because, so I made this card a couple of days ago before I'm doing this voiceover. And I did it. I did all the techniques. I was like, these are so cool. I'm super thrilled with them. Like, I love the way that they came out. And then tonight when I sat down to edit the video, y'all, there was no footage of it. There was no footage of any of it, of any of the coloring. Like, it was just gone. I really honestly have no idea what happened. So I had to take my SD card back out, redo all of my cutting of my things and the coloring and all that jazz so that I could put it in here so that you guys could even see me put it together. Because sometimes that's just the way stuff goes. So now that I have all the little things in there, my toolbox is nice and full of tools and beverages. I can then put these two pieces, you can see that they're kind of notched where they would line up at. And then our toolbox is done and full and wonderful. All our little metal tools and our drinks. So now we can move on to finishing out the card. I am going to be using our 3D embossing folder. This is the rustic brick. And then this is the barn planks, like the barnwood planks. But I have to tell you, I use these all the time as like a shelf in my cards, and I'm using it the same way today. So here, this is so funny too. Now, I didn't film the coloring. Why? Who knows? But then I also did the ink blending, and then I went ahead and put the paper in upside down. So the ink blending that I did ended up on the back side of the paper, so now I had to ink blend again. It was fine. I used pumice stone and hickory smoke, so a warm gray and a cool gray, and that's just to help add some character to the wall so it's not super like stark white, because they never would, a brick wall would never be that stark white unless you just painted it. And it helps those embossed details to kind of pop through. So I just layered them. I did leave some areas white, but I kind of just layered them, randomly throughout. And then for that, what is it? It's a plank, but we're using it as a shelf. That's what it is. For the shelf, I did just color it with my markers, which is the same way that I colored everything else. So here I'm just trying to figure out, like just eyeballing to see where I'm going to put it. This is a little bit too high up, so I am going to move it down. And then again, I'm just figuring out where my things are going to go. I knew I wanted to leave one beer bottle out because of the sentiments that I chose. This is actually going to end up being my brother-in-law's birthday card. We have a lot of July birthdays. My father-in-law, my brother-in-law, and my sister-in-law, all in July. And so I am always making their cards. So I thought that this one would be really, really cute for him. Because he goes to breweries to make his own beer, and all those bottles are brown, and we have to say, when he gives them to my husband, we have to save them and rinse them out and send them back so that he can take them back to him when he does his next go round. So I thought that it would be a pretty fun card for him. Here's that shelf. Very quickly, just adding some shading, using some browns. They emboss with the wood grain, so just rubbing my marker kind of lightly over the top of it is catching some of that wood grain in the middle, without like really oversaturating it. And then for my lightest color, I'll just kind of fill it all in. But for the most part, you're really not going to see a lot of this shelf because the toolbox it's a good size. It is probably, I'm sure they'll have the measurements on the actual website, but it is about 3.5 inches wide and 2 3/4 tall. So it is a good size toolbox to fit on a card, whether it's portrait or landscape. Here, I had the idea, I thought it would be cute, like the little toolbox with the beer sitting on the shelf, to do like some pictures on like their little man cave wall on the brick wall, and that's going to be my sentiments. But It's such a pain to stamp your sentiments and then trim them centered into the sizes that you need for pictures, that it's so much easier to just cut them out of white and then cut the squares and glue them to them. It's just so much easier. So that is what I ended up doing. I cut my white squares to be my signs, and then I also cut them frames out of that craft cardstock. And here I'm just adding the same brown that I used to color the bottles. No, the same brown that I used to color the shelf. I'm just adding some darkness around there so that everything ties in really nicely together. And I just use those two colors. That's it. And then I'll be able to glue them together so that they create these little signs. And you can see, like, as I was going through it, my original intention was to put it on like a white background. Because when I did the rustic background, I should have mentioned that, I'm sorry. I did trim it down to 4 by 5 1/4 because it does get a little bit challenging to trim down embossed paper. It can rip, it can tear, depending upon what kind of trimmer that you have. So because I already knew that I wanted it to have a mat, I just went ahead and cut it there to begin with before I even ran it through. So now here I'm going to be able to put in my little beer bottles. I say little, but that big one is a big one. I started to put them down kind of right next to each other, and then I realized that big one is going to take up a little bit more room. So I just popped off the middle one real quick, put the big one down, and then I was able to put that middle one back again. And I did try to like vary their heights and stuff. Maybe one was up taller, one was down a little bit lower. As long as they're not hanging out of the bottom of your toolbox, I think you're fine. And then that other one that has kind of like the cool pop-off lid with the cold beer label, that one is going to go in front of the toolbox. Again, just a little added something. So here, they're all in, and you could absolutely, just do it like this. You wouldn't have to have the one out, but I just thought it added a little bit of more interest to the card. So it is a very layered card because we do have so many layers of cardstock. So even though everything is being glued down flat, there's still a lot of texture. We're getting the texture from the brick in the background, and then all of the bottles kind of being stacked up over top of it, and then you've got the smooth and the shiny, and I'm really happy with the way that this came out, and I foresee a lot of uses for this toolbox. So I just glued those down flat for my sentiments. And then here, I kind of had to play around with it just a little bit. I knew that I didn't want it to go all the way across because visually it would have cut off my card. So I knew that I wanted to have a little bit of a gap, but I needed to have enough room that my toolbox was actually going to fit on it. So I did end up having to scoot it just a little bit closer, and then I was able to just flip it over once I get my toolbox on, and then I'll just trim off the excess of that shelf. I do have like a more like clean and simple kind of card that I will be sharing with you guys in another video that doesn't necessarily have all of this going on. It's really, just concentrating on the techniques and the coloring of the toolbox and stuff. So we're going to trim that off. Then I will add a little bit of a shadow underneath there so it feels a little bit more grounded, because we would have a natural shadow there where the toolbox sat. I will then put the last beer that we have in place. And again, I just did it with the regular adhesive, but I probably should have just poked a little bit of foam tape underneath the bottom of the bottle just for it to be like flush. Because there's so many layers of cardstock, it does peek up just a little bit. Then I'm going to add the glue to the background. Now, like I said before, I was going to mount it on white, but I tried the brown and I was like, oh, I like that so much better. So this is like a dark kind of chocolatey brown for the mat. Because of all the layers, you might want to put like a little bit of a weight on this or some heavy books for it to dry. But then that's it. This is the whole card. So I hope that you guys are excited for the release this Friday. And I will be back tomorrow with another product spotlight. Thank you so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.